For more than 2 years now, basically every Republican in and outside of politics has pretended that they care a ton about saving the children, protecting them from predators, from groomers. Well, let's test that theory. Let's test how much they actually care about discussing these predators when they're found, because Matthew Sheffield over at TYT Investigates has uncovered a former Trump official who has pled guilty to child porn charges. And we're gonna give you all the details, bearing in mind that this stuff is as dark as you're probably already thinking it's going to be. He is a former Commerce Department official in the Trump administration, sentenced to a 5.5-year prison term after pleading guilty to possession of child pornography. This is Aide Hageman, also sentenced to 5 years of parole after release and a mandatory requirement to register as a sex offender. He was apparently arrested back in November of 2020. You would think he would have been busy with the whole election thing, but no, he was found to be a member of an online group chat dedicated to sharing images of child sexual abuse. Here are the details. He shared with members at least one video of a child being molested, claimed to have sexually abused a child as young as 15, and indicated that he wanted to sexually assault children between the ages of 12 and 16 years old. Prosecutors asserted that they found dozens of child sexual abuse videos on his phone after they executed a search warrant against him. He also requested of the other members in this group that someone find, quote, a dad with a young kid he will rent out to us.
Wow.
So those are the crimes that he committed, and he will now be spending a number of years in prison, as seems 100% deserved. Prior to that, before serving in the Commerce Department under Donald Trump, he worked at Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA as a campus event coordinator, events that were frequently attended by underage children. If you want to see a picture of this individual there, he is on the right, to be clear. And he apparently really got around in Republican circles. You can see him hanging out with Sebastian Gorka, which is a thing he chose to do for some reason, Madison Cawthorn as well. And there is reason to believe that others might be caught up in this investigation as well. It seems like there was another individual, Ruben Verastegui, I believe, sentenced in April to 12 years in prison following a guilty plea. What do you think?
Yeah, so I want to talk about who's the most guilty here. And I want to explain why we have the political landscape that we do in this regard. So first of all, to be fair to Sebastian Gorka and Madison Cawthorn, two people I generally despise. So my feelings on them are clear. They don't know that that guy's a child molester, okay? So they haven't taken a picture with him, it happens.
Of course.
Okay, now Charlie Kirk on the other hand hired that child molester to go talk to children. So now I'm sure, I'm not sure, but I would guess, I would hope that he didn't know. Okay, but you're doing a thing where you're trying to literally change the minds of kids. And it's funny because they're always like, oh, the left is trying to indoctrinate the kids. We have an entire organization that we're super proud of where we try to indoctrinate kids. It's called Turning Point USA. Then you've got like an even bigger responsibility to be careful and to do vetting, etc. And you've got these predators going around in your organization and using your organization. Look, we don't know. We know that he wanted to molest kids. We know that he trafficked in pictures and other things related to kids. We know he's been arrested for that. And look, he also liked babies. It's just the most disgusting thing you could imagine, okay? So now you're not gonna get babies at Turning Point USA. I'm trying to be as fair as I could possibly be, right? But you are gonna get kids in some of the age ranges that he liked. So, and for the Trump administration people, who are constantly, Trump people constantly attacking others for being groomers and pedophiles and etc. Well, if you're accusing others of it and there's somebody inside your own house doing it, then you've also got an extra responsibility, okay? So now, why does the larger point is, why does the right wing call everybody groomers and pedophiles? QAnon now unfortunately I know it's unbelievable, but 15% of the country at a minimum believes in QAnon. That there's a ring of powerful people who molest children and sometimes even drink their brain juice, okay? Now this guy didn't drink their brain juice because that's a thing that's made up. No one does that, right? Not even the worst right winger in the world does that, okay? So, but they believe that there are powerful people inside the government who do this. Hey, look, it turns out it's a Republican. It turns out it's a Republican. Is that going to change their mind at all? That maybe it's not the leadership of the Democratic Party, but that it could be a range of people that are just happen to be pedophiles in different places, or that maybe it's the Republicans that do it. No, it'll never change their mind because they're doing it out of emotions. They're not doing it out of facts. This is a fact. The guy got arrested. Okay, so now look, the reason they do it is a thing called projection. It's in their heads. The reason why the right wing makes that accusation 1,000 times more is because a lot of them, not all of them, of course not, but a lot of them, they're thinking about it a lot. And I'm going to give you the weirdest analogy here. When I've been playing fantasy football for about a quarter of a century now, so we're one of the first ones to adopt it. And in the beginning, when I started playing, I loved it so much. I thought everybody was doing it. I'd go talk to other football fans, and I'd be like, "Oh, how many points did Barry Sanders score for you?" And they'd be like, "What are you talking about?" I was projecting because it was in my head, so I thought it was in their head, and of course it wasn't. That's what they do with pedophilia. It's not in our heads. We don't know what the hell they're talking about. But they come up to us and they're like, "Oh, the pedophilia guys are terrible, aren't they? They run everything, don't they?" We're like, "What?" Because they think, well, I would like it. So I assume you like it. I assume they like it. I assume the people in power like it. No, they don't. No, it's just you who likes it. So stop accusing other people when it's actually you guys who are doing it. Max.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there is a cabal of powerful people who are attempting to, and in some cases, successfully grooming and molesting kids. They just happen to all be working with and around Donald Trump. And it's not that much of a surprise when you remember that Donald Trump is the guy who would very casually talk about how sexy his underage daughter was and how much he wished he could date her. And this guy is not the first, second, or the fifth person to be involved in this. There were state campaign chairmen for Trump that were caught sending solicitous messages to what they thought were children. There were people who were trying to groom campaign staff. This is a problem that was given safe harbor because the campaign and these organizations simply will not look into you. They benefit from not looking too deep at the people who want to work for them, because if they have any kind of quality control, they would have literally nobody left to work for them. And that safe harbor has resulted in terrible cases like this. And it is clearly something that Republicans are going to pretend does not exist and try to sweep under the rug when it comes up.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree a bit more actually with you, Cenk, and not in total. I think that the projection part, I think, applies to a number of, again, the regular base. I'm gonna differentiate the base and those who are pushing the stuff. Not tons, but if you can conceive of a world where this many people want to engage in acts of pedophilia, you're out of your mind. I cannot imagine that being a popular thing because to me it's reprehensible. If to you it's reasonable, then that's weird. That doesn't mean that you wanna do it, but that's very weird. Whereas for the pundits, the Ben Shapiros, the Matt Walshes, the Charlie Kirks and stuff, I don't think that they're projecting wanting to do this. I don't think they think it's happening at all. I think they find it to be an incredibly useful distraction, and that's it. And I will be more fair to Charlie Kirk than you just were. Not only do I not think that he could have known that this guy had those views, I also don't think he should feel particularly bad for having hired him, because how would you find out? Honestly, I can't imagine how he would have known. However, I will challenge him in one way. I just asserted that you don't actually care about this stuff. It's not real to you. It's just a convenient grift, and you have a chance to prove me wrong. All you have to do, Charlie Kirk, is talk about this story. If you actually care about these things, you don't have to apologize for him working for you or anything like that. But you do have to talk about how terrible it was that he was doing these things and that he was in these high-profile circles in Republican, the Republican Party. But of course, you're not going to do that. When the QAnon people that run the QAnon forums, and it turns out that they've got tons of child porn, they never talk about it. They cared about Epstein only insofar as they could kind of reference something about Clinton, but as soon as Trump was saying and doing the weird things, they never mentioned that. Trump talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, they never mentioned that. Again, when there's actual pedophilia, they do not care, which is only consistent with this being a convenient political narrative and not something they really care about. But again, prove me wrong, Charlie Kirk. Talk about this actual story.
Yeah, so John, look, let me clarify. I agree nearly 100% with what you just said. So the main point of clarification that you need there is, so for the QAnon forum guys, so they're the ones that are kind of in the middle. They're not like the big right-wing pundits, but they're not just grassroots either. They're like leaders within their social media circles, right? Those folks are probably the single most dangerous subset because they're thinking about pedophilia 24/7.
That's true.
And they're assuming everyone is doing it, and they're telling everyone is doing it. There's a reason why they're assuming that. Those are the guys that if I was the authorities, I'd look most into them. And they're like, oh, how dare you, I have freedom. No, you don't have the freedom to molest kids. So I'm worried about what you're doing, okay? And so now, for the Matt Walshes of the world, John, I know, I totally agree with you. I don't know that he thinks it and he's projecting it, but what they're doing is slightly worse because they can tell that they're profiting off of that when they talk about it. So they talk about X and it either brings in money or it doesn't, right? It resonates or it doesn't. So if it doesn't, they're like if they said, hey, you know what, immigrants are wonderful. Everyone's like, boo! They're like, okay, never say that again. That doesn't make money, right? When they say, hey, everybody's pedophiles, that resonates and they make money. So they say, oh good, I can make money. And it's hateful, it's not true. It's a conspiracy theory, it's disgusting, it makes people hate each other, but I'm making money off of it. So I don't care at all. So that's why the Matt Walshes of the world are the most immoral in a sense. Because they're like, oh great, a thing that I know isn't true, I will profit off of and sow division and hatred throughout the country, okay? But
like Jesus would.
But the most concerning part, guys, is the one that's the toughest to deal with. And by the way, there's two different subsets there too. Among the grassroots on the right wing, some have actually been molested. And so that's why it resonates with them. And they think, oh, it happened to me, it probably happens to everybody, right? And for those people, my heart goes out to them. Like I want help for you. I don't mean that in any kind of condescending way. I genuinely, you were molested, and that is incredibly traumatic, etc., right? But there's another half who it resonates with because they think, yeah, isn't everybody thinking about molesting kids? And that's the one that's the moneymaker for the right-wing pundits. You appeal to them, you goad those guys on, you're gonna make a lot of money because unfortunately, there's a lot of them. And they're all going towards a certain area. That's why they don't wanna hear that it's left-wing. Like that it's not left-wing, right? They don't wanna hear that. They wanna hear self-affirming, oh, I think it, but they're the ones who are, doing it. They're the evil ones, right? And that's a big number, and that's disconcerting.
Yeah, the unforgivable thing here, I think, is the silence as well. I mean, to John's point, when something like this happens and your first response is, let's talk about something else, let's sweep this away and get it out of the headlines, that is sick and that enables further abuse. We saw that in the church, we've seen that in countless organizations. If there is people really interested in policing this kind of abuse of children, then Charlie Kirk, Matt Walsh should be able to talk about this loudly and condemn it in their own party. But what we see is not just silence, but trying to blame shift and what about and muddy the waters of this, which is one of the most disgusting things I've seen.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm gonna add one last quick thing. Look, when it's ours, we call him out right away. Anthony Weiner, what a clown, what an idiot. Why did he do that stuff? That's terrible, terrible. It's so easy. Why would we try to protect him? It doesn't make any sense to us. Bad guy, you call him a bad guy, you move on, right? But for them, they don't think about it like that. They're tribal, us versus them. So when Trump wishes Ghislaine Maxwell well, twice, he had a chance to correct it. Literally the biggest groomer in American history. The technical term like groomer, it means something. You cultivate people, kids, for molestation. That's exactly what she did. The biggest in American history. And he's like, oh, I wish her well, she's a friend of mine. And none of them on the right wing called him out. Not one. What does that tell you? That tells you they don't care about the issue. They just care about politics and profits. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.